Okay, so the last class we learned how to solve a system using substitution. Today you're going to learn a different algebraic method to solve the system, and it's called elimination. This first example is on the piece of paper on your notes. You need to copy this on that paper that was handed out to you. And then we'll do some extra practice, but this one needs to be copied on that paper. This says that x minus 3y equals 13 and negative 8x plus 3y equals negative 20. In order to use elimination, you first need to make sure that all of your variables have a coefficient. So we're going to add a coefficient of 1 next to this x that was alone. Now, your first step when using elimination, step 1, we're going to add the equations, which is really going to end up just being combining like terms. So when I add the top equation to the bottom equation, notice that my like terms are already lined up. The x's both come first, the y's both come second, and then the answers come third. So if I have 1x plus a negative 8x, that's negative 7x's. Negative 3y plus 3y, that's 0y. So instead of writing anything down, we're going to cross it out. Those canceled. Then when I add my answers, I still have an equal sign. That just carries down. 13 plus a negative 20 is a negative 7. So now I have an equation that only has negative 7x equals negative 7. Because I only have one letter left, my step 2 is solve for the letter I have, which is x. So if I now solve for x, to get x by itself, we're going to divide by the negative 7. We have x alone equals negative 1. Now that's half of the answer, because remember when we use systems, our solution or our answer is an ordered pair or a point on the graph, which means I need the x value and I also need a y value. So I found the x value, but now to solve for the y value, it's kind of like part 2, step 3, we're going to replace or substitute x with negative 1 in either original equation. So that means you can pick x minus 3y equals 13 or negative 8x plus 3y equals negative 20. You can pick either of those to put this number back into. So I'm going to grab a highlighter. I'm going to highlight the negative 1, and I'm going to highlight the x I'm choosing to put it in place of. So for the second part, I'm going to copy that first equation that I picked to use, but instead of x, I'm going to use parentheses negative 1. So I have 1x, so I have 1 instead of x, negative 1, minus 3y equals 13. Now I have an equation that only has a y, so our last step, step 4, we're going to solve for y. So draw your line. 1 times negative 1 is negative 1, minus 3y equals 13. I'm going to add 1 to both sides. So negative 3y equals 14. Divide by 3, divide by 3. 14 divided by 3, divided by negative 3, sorry. 14 divided by negative 3 does not simplify, so we're just going to say that y equals negative 14 over 3. So my answer, the point where these two equations would cross each other on a graph, is negative 1 and negative 14 thirds. Okay, now I want you to take this page, set it to the side. I want you to grab your dry erase board, and I want you to work this question. Pause the video, you do the work, and then push play when you're ready to check your answer. Okay, so you should have already done all of the work. I'm going to do that work with you now so we can check each other. First, you add the equations together. Negative 2x plus 2x, that cancels, that's no x's. Negative 2y plus 5y, that's 3y, equals 2 plus negative 23 is negative 21. To get y alone, we're going to divide by 3. Y equals negative 7. But now I'm going to highlight. I'm going to put that negative 7 into my equation of choice. I'm going to choose the second one because it's more positive numbers. When I rewrite that, I have 2x plus 5. Instead of y, I'm using negative 7 equals negative 23. All right. 2x. 5 times a negative 7 is a negative 35. Equals negative 23. Add 35. 2x equals 12. Divide by 2. X equals 6. So my answer is the ordered pair, 6, negative 7. All right. Now, pause the video. Try this one. Okay, so now that you've tried it, we're going to start by adding our equations. Remember, this minus y is really minus 1y and plus 1y. So I have 9x's plus a negative 3x, that's 6x. Negative 1y plus 1y, that cancels, equals negative 12 plus 0 is negative 12. Divide both sides by 6. X equals negative 2. Now we're going to take negative 2. I'm going to put it into this top equation. So when I rewrite that, I have 9. Instead of x, I'm using negative 2 minus 1y equals negative 12. 9 times negative 2 is negative 18, minus 1y, negative 12, plus 18. So negative 1y equals 6, divide by negative 1, y equals negative 6. So my answer, the solution to my question, is the ordered pair, negative 2, negative 6. So if I graphed those two equations, that's the point they would touch at. All right, pause the video, try this one. Okay, now that you've tried it on your own, let's do it together. So add the equations. 10x's plus negative 10x's, no more x's. Negative 6y plus negative 3y, negative 9y. Keep the equal sign. Negative 8 plus 26, 16. That's not right. That's not right. Sorry. Negative 8 plus 26 is not 16. It is 18. Okay, now get y alone. So we're going to divide by negative 9. Y equals negative 2. Use the negative 2. Pick one of the y's to put it into. I'm going to go with the top equation. So copy it over. 10x's minus 6. Instead of y, I'm using negative 2. Equals negative 8. So 10x plus 12. Negative 6 times negative 2 is 12. Equals negative 8. Minus 12. From both sides. That cancels. 10x equals negative 20. Divide by 10. X equals negative 2. So my answer, the solution, is the ordered pair, negative 2, negative 2. All right? Okay, now get your notes back out. We're going to do the second example in the notes. So the first step in my last example was to add the equations together. But that is not my first step here, and I'm going to show you why. So don't write this down, just watch. If I put a 1 here and I start by adding my equations, 1x plus negative 3x is negative 2x. 2y's plus 3y's is 5y's. So the problem is, when I added my equations, neither letter canceled. And that's the whole goal, is I need one of the variables to cancel so I can solve for the other. So this one I cannot start by adding. I have to start by step 1, use multiplication to create an opposite variable, or an opposite coefficient. In order for my variables to cancel, I need the coefficients of those variables to be opposite numbers. For example, I need a 3 and a negative 3, or a 2 and a negative 2, or a 5 and a negative 5. So right now my coefficients for x are 1 and negative 3. My coefficients for y are 2 and 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick the top equation. I'm going to multiply everything I have in the top equation by 3. So when I do 3 times 1x, that's 3x. 3 times 2y, that's 6y. 3 times negative 18 that's a big number. It's negative 54. Okay, now I'm just going to carry over the bottom equation because I haven't changed it. So it's negative 3x plus 3y equals negative 27. Now I can add my equations, and when I do that, my 3x's and my negative 3x's will cancel. So now I've created a situation where I have opposite coefficients on one of the variables, so they cancel and I only have the other. So step 2, add the equations. So my x's cancel, 6y's plus 3y's, 9y, equals negative 54 plus negative 27 is negative 81. So step 3, now I only have the variable y, so I can solve for y. So divide by 9. Y equals negative 9. So I have the y. I still need to find the x because I need the ordered pair. So we're going to take this 9 and we're going to substitute it back into one of the original equations. So I'm going to substitute it back here in the first original equation. So when I do that, let's write that in a different color. So step 4, we're going to replace y with negative 9 in either original equation. So if I choose to put it in this first one, then I take the 1x plus the 2. Instead of y, I'm using negative 9 equals negative 18. Now, we're going to solve for the variable I have left, which is x. So 1x, 2 times negative 9 is negative 18 equals negative 18. Add 18. So 1x equals 0. Divide by 1. X equals 0. So my answer is the ordered pair where x is 0, y is negative 9. Okay? That was looked like a lot of mess. But all of your steps are the same, except we added this one extra step at the beginning where we force the equations to be opposites. It doesn't matter if you end up with an opposite for y's or if you end up with an opposite for x's. Either way, you should end up with the same answer. So sometimes you can multiply by a different number and it would still work. This one, it's kind of the only way to do it. Okay, so that's it for your notes. Make sure that goes on the correct page in your journal. But I need you to keep practicing on some whiteboards, okay? So on your whiteboard, I want you to pause the video, and I just want you to attempt this next one. Okay, so now that you've attempted it on your own, I know that my x's won't cancel and my y's won't cancel, so I have to multiply one of them by something. If I multiply by the top equation by 8, then I end up with negative 8x's plus 8y's equals 8 times 18 is 144. Okay, so I distributed 8. And that works because now I have negative 8x minus 8y equals negative 16. And if I add those two equations together, negative 8x's plus negative 8x's is negative 16x. Negative 8y plus 8y, that cancels. 144 plus a negative 16 is 128. So now I can solve for x. We're going to divide by negative 16. X equals negative 8. Now I take the negative 8 and I plug it into either equation. It doesn't matter. I'm going to take it and plug it into this first equation. So remember there's a 1 here and a 1 here. Okay, so step 2, I've got negative 1 instead of x, we're using negative 8, plus 1y equals 18. Negative 1 times negative 8 is a positive 8, plus 1y equals 18, minus 8. 1y equals 10, divide by 1, y equals 10. So the answer you should have gotten, is the ordered pair, negative 8, 10. All right, pause your video, try this one. Okay, so to do this one together, we notice if we add them together, nothing will cancel. If I can turn this y into a positive 10, then my y's will cancel. In order to turn it to a positive 10, I have to multiply by 2. So I'm going to distribute the 2. So I have negative 4x plus 10y equals negative 20. Carry over the second equation. Negative 3x minus 10y equals 20. Add the two equations together. So negative 4 plus negative 3 is negative 7x. 10y's plus negative 10y's cancel. Negative 20 plus 20 also cancels, but I need something here as a placeholder, so we're going to say it equals to 0. Then solve for x, so divide by negative 7. X equals 0. Okay, now I'm going to take this and I'm going to put it into, I just like to use the top equation, but it really doesn't matter. So I have negative 2. Instead of x, I'm using the 0. Plus 5y equals negative 10. Solve for y. So negative 2 times 0 is 0. Plus 5y equals negative 10. If you subtract 0, you still have 5y equals negative 10. And divide by 5. Y equals negative 2. So my answer, x is 0, y is negative 2. Okay. Pause the video, try this one. Excuse me. Okay, this one you have some options. So if I add them together right now, nothing will cancel. But if I could turn this negative y into negative 6y, then the y's would cancel. But if I turn this negative x into a negative 5x, then the x's will cancel. It doesn't matter which one you chose to do, and whichever way you do it, your work will look very different from mine if you did it different, but your answer should still be the same. So if you did it different, just keep watching. but I'm going to multiply the top equation by 6. So when I distribute the 6 times 5x is 30x. 6 times negative 1y is negative 6y equals 6 times 2 is 12. Carry the second equation over. So I have negative 1x plus 6y equals negative 12. Now add the equations. So 30x plus negative 1x is 29x. Negative 6y plus 6y cancels. And 12 plus the negative 12 is 0. Divide by 29. X equals 0. Okay? Now take this 0, put it into either equation. I'm going to go with the top one. So I have 5. Instead of x, I'm using 0. Minus 1y equals 2. 5 times 0 is 0. Minus 1y equals 2. Subtract the 0. Negative 1y equals 2. Divide by negative 1. Y equals negative 2. So my answer is the ordered pair, 0, negative 2. Okay? Okay, let's just do one more. So on your dry erase board, you try, we're going to skip to this one. Skip to this one. So negative 6x minus 16y equals negative 2. Negative x minus 8y equals negative 11. So try it on your own first. Okay, again, you have some options, but one of the main things you need to remember is that your coefficients don't need to be the same number, they need to be opposite numbers. So the first thing that I see is if I multiply this bottom equation by 6, then I'll have negative 6x on top, and 6 times negative 1 is negative 6x on bottom. The only problem is they're both negative. So I need to make my multiplier a negative number so that it will change the sign and give me opposite coefficients. So that looks like this. We're going to keep the top equation, negative 6x minus 16y equals negative 2. But the bottom equation, negative 6 times negative 1 is a positive 6x. Negative 6 times negative 8 is positive 48y equals negative 6 times negative 11 is positive 66. So if you need the signs to change, you need to multiply by a negative value. All right, so now when I add them, negative 6 plus 6 cancels the x's. Negative 16 plus 48 is 32. So I have 32 y's equals negative 2 plus 66 is 64. To get y alone, I'm going to divide by 32. So I end up with y equals 2. Now, use that. Pick either equation. I'm going to go with the top and put that value in place. So I'm going to copy what I have, negative 6x minus 16. Instead of y, I'm using 2 equals negative 2. Oops. All right, now solve for x. So negative 6x minus 32, negative 16 times 2 equals negative 2. Add 32. Negative 6x equals 30. Divide by negative 6. X equals negative 5. So my answer is the ordered pair, negative 5, 2. Okay, I think that's good. So that's the end of this video for today.